Hello, good evening. So Minister Jagannath has just given his 2016 budget speech, and here at PwC we are reacting to what we've heard, and we are reacting to the Minister's proposals. We feel that there was a real desire for reform. The Minister has come up with a number of suggestions, many of which we believe are very interesting and probably will be positive for the economy. We also believe that the Minister didn't go as far as we would have liked him. This is very common in our annual analysis of budget speech. We believe there have been good measures, and at the same time, maybe the Minister could have gone a little bit further. So in terms of the good measures, we have picked up a number of business facilitation measures. He's accelerated the processes to issue building and land use permits. This will certainly help the construction sector, and the construction sector is a large employer. So we expect good benefits from the acceleration of these permits. He's also removed a number of constraints in the property development schemes. This again will facilitate a number of construction projects. Also in the construction sector, now non-citizens will be allowed to buy apartments. This wasn't the case until now. This will encourage a number of promoters and a number of developments. We have also picked up that he has introduced a number of e-licensing proposals. At PwC we have always believed and suggested the power of the digital transformation of our economy. And it seems to us that the Minister on a number of occasions has mentioned and will introduce digitalization of parastatals, of local government and of central government. He's also empowered the BOI to clear a number of projects. There are, as we can imagine, there are quite a few projects in the pipeline of government, of the BOI, and now the BOI will be empowered to fast track these projects. So all this is very encouraging, and it's facilitating the environment, it's facilitating how we do business. He's also announced the combination of a number of public bodies. What we can say is that it's a step in the right direction, and we hope that this coming together of institutions will lead them to be more efficient, to be more productive. An interesting bit, which is in just the one paragraph, is that he suggested that the State Investment Corporation should start realizing its mature investments. Again, at PwC, we have for a number of years been saying that government had nothing to do in the casinos, and the casinos are obviously a very old investment by the SIC. So one can read in the paragraph that government will actually sell its old or mature investments, and that will include the casinos. The Minister wasn't maybe very direct in his speech, but that's the way we read it here. One of the major reforms that the Minister announced was around the new metro. It seems to be a done deal. It seems to be a decision taken by government. Though I must confess I hadn't heard too much about it in the press. The Metro Express will be launched this year. Our only concern around this project is how it's going to be financed. And the Minister, unfortunately, didn't give too many details on this. He did mention that the Victoria station would be on a BOT, and BOT means public-private partnership. So our concern here at PwC is that we would have hoped the Minister to be clearer on how the Metro Express would be financed. We would strongly encourage for private sector involvement as a PPP. It would be the private sector doing the investment, it would be the private sector running the metro, and we don't believe that it's something that government can do. We believe that there'll be inefficiencies in the management of the Metro Express, and when it's financed by government, it will have to come from tax revenues, and philosophically we have issues with this. So the Minister just mentioned that the Metro Express was coming as a project, but there were, in my view, insufficient details on how this would be run. Interestingly, the minister also announced, as part of the fight against absolute poverty, that people who are on the solidarity register, meaning the poorest of our society, would be receiving monthly allowances from government. This is the very first. Our social welfare never went to such a level of paying monthly sums to the most or to the poorest of our society. The numbers mentioned are seem to be quite generous. A family of 5 would get something like 9,500 rupees. Hopefully, some people would benefit from these measures. The minister mentioned that this would cost 500 million over a 2-year transition period. So it's not very clear whether it'll be 500 million a year or a little bit less. The difficulty with those schemes is how to manage them. How do you make sure that it's only people who are really deserving who are on that solidarity register? But if it's well managed, then at 500 million, I guess it's an investment that we can afford in the poorest of our society. The government also mentioned that they were spending about 4 billion in water. I mean, water investment has been overdue for years. Again, at PwC, we believe that this could have been done through a PPP project. The pressure on government would have been less, and in fact, with private sector funding, we probably could have done more and more quickly. So water is happening. Improvements to our water supply are happening. It's just that it's costing the taxpayer a lot of money because government has kept the private sector out of those investments. Areas where government could have done less and opened the door to private sector investments, government seems to be closing those doors. The number of civil servants next year will increase by 19%. It's a huge number. We're going to end up paying 62, let me give you the figure, 365 civil servants next year, and that is an increase of 19% over the civil servants who were in government employment this year. From a philosophical point of view, it's not for government to create employment in an economy, and yet this is exactly what our government is doing. The problem with civil servants is that they cost the taxpayer money. So to finance 20% more civil servants, you have to raise taxes from somewhere, and that somewhere comes from the population. I think maybe it's a missed opportunity for government to, if they had improved or increased the number of civil servants by a nominal amount, then I think the messages would have been right. The budget for expenses is increasing by 10.6% next year. That's a huge figure because inflation is expected to be around about 2% next year, 2016, 2017. So inflation at 2%, and yet government spending is increasing by 10.3%. That's a huge number. Again, I think it's a little bit of a missed opportunity because with such low inflation, government spending could have been kept within a much tighter parameter, and with less government spending, the potential for a reduction in taxes from VAT to duty on cars, duty on number of goods, probably would have been greater. So that's a real issue where government is spending far more than the rate of inflation. Interestingly, the government revenues will grow by about 9% next year. We call this the tax buoyancy. So there's a good tax buoyancy at 9%. Unfortunately, all that tax buoyancy will be out again in more spending. The bottom line is that government expects the budgetary deficit to be around about 3.3% of GDP. Positives, I think there was a genuine desire, a genuine attempt at reforming a number of our institutions, at reforming the economy. But unfortunately, the government hasn't gone far enough in those reforms. I know budgets are prepared by politicians, and there's a political reality of the country. So one has to trade off these political pressures and balancing a budget. Still, we are on the way of reforms, and all I can say is that I hope that this is a start, that next year the minister will go a little bit further in his budgetary measures, in his reforms, or to make Mauritius more productive, more modern, and more performing. So that's all I have to share with you tonight. Thank you.